Hi, my name is Carola and I am German. I've been living in Paris for the last 2 years now. One of the questions I so often get asked is, what is it really like to live in Paris? When I get asked that question, I assume that people expect me to answer one of two things. Either that it is a fairy tale and a dream come true and so amazing, or that it's super dangerous and that I don't really dare to go out. And I think the reality is somewhere in between. I feel like Paris is doing everything a little bit more complicated than I expected it to be. I don't have a letterbox, and instead everything gets delivered to my concierge, who then delivers the letters by pushing them under my door. That is such a nice service, but it could also work with just a letterbox. There are areas in Paris where I probably wouldn't go out at night, but then on the other hand, nothing bad ever happened to me personally. I didn't have anything stolen. A few of my friends talked about that they had pickpockets steal something from them, but it never happened to me. I never even got touched inappropriately in the metro. When people say, yeah, that happens all the time, but maybe because I'm 1.78 m, I'm not the easiest target. I'm usually taller than the guys around me. The advantages of living in Paris are, of course, that if you want to do something, there's always something you can do. You could go watch a theater play, you could go to a concert or go in a museum. And I remember growing up in Hildesheim, once there was a Liquido concert and everybody who didn't hate the band got tickets because it's the only thing you could do that month. So Paris is full of opportunities, and as I love history, it is so amazing to be in the city which has been the capital of France for such a long time. So many important events happened right here. And I could just go out into the streets and I would stumble over some historic place. Then of course, if you like museums, there's modern art, there's classical art, anything you wish for. I'm not such a big museum fan, I don't often understand art, but if you like that, it's out there. The French are so much friendlier than the Germans. I recently was at the German embassy and the French security guard, he was so sweet and talkative, and then I got to the German officer and he was pretty mean. Or not mean, but correct and distant. And you could see such a difference. The disadvantages of living in Paris, of course, are that rents are super expensive. And I live in 26 square meters, which is way smaller than what I had in Frankfurt. And I still pay over 1,000 euros. And I have friends who live in 15 square meters on the 7th floor and no elevators, so they have to walk up the stairs. So if you don't like tiny apartments, then maybe Paris wouldn't be the place for you. I actually decided that the 34 square meters that I used to live in when I first came here are too big for me. Because I now have one big room, it's my living room and my bedroom at the same time, and I can decide which one I want it to be right now. Another huge disadvantage about Paris is that it's very hostile to people who can't walk well, who are handicapped, maybe even in a wheelchair. There are so many metro stations where you can't get out unless you use the stairs. And I even have trouble if I'm just going to these stations using a suitcase. And right now we even have a general strike, so you can't even use the metro normally. So if you have trouble walking, it's even more complicated. Even without the general strike, for example, if you want to go see Montmartre, it's just a lot of stairs. Apart from the costly apartments, also the groceries are quite expensive. I live in an area where there are just no cheap supermarkets around. So in order to get to the cheap supermarkets, I would have to get onto the metro or walk a long way. And It's just these tiny amounts that just add up because everything is a little bit more expensive than in Germany. I didn't expect the paperwork in France to be much more complicated than in Germany, because Germany already has that reputation of everything being quite complicated. So I hadn't expected it to be more complicated here, but it is. And if you're not a tourist, suddenly you have to deal with that. A recent example is I have my carte vitale, which is like the social security card. I had that for over a year now, and for the first year that I was here, I didn't have the official number because it takes a while. And so I had a mutuelle, which is like an extra insurance, and they had used the temporary number, and that worked. But then I finally got my final number, and then the pharmacy said, okay, you can't use the mutuelle because the number doesn't match your social security number anymore. And finally, just 2 weeks ago, I finally got a printout for 2020 that has the right number. So from now on, I can again show just that extra insurance and then don't have to pay for medicine. One big misconception is that people think, oh, you're so lucky, you get to see the Eiffel Tower every day on your way to work. And one, the Eiffel Tower is something quite boring. It's a lot of steel and it's not very pretty. And two, no, not everybody gets to see the Eiffel Tower on their way to work. And even if you do, then you are probably very annoyed because tourists are taking up all the spaces in the public transport, if there is some. For me, a normal day would be that I get up, I get to work by 9, and then I leave after 6 p.m., sometimes after 7 p.m. And so then I get home, I sit in front of the camera or I'm editing, and I don't really take advantage of being in Paris. This could be anywhere. A lot of reasons why I love Paris so much and why I love living in Paris so much have nothing to do with the city itself, but I got really lucky with my job and my coworkers, and I have made some amazing friends here. So that makes life just amazing, but that could happen in any other place. It just happened to be Paris for me. A disadvantage for me is that my parents are 8 hours away, so I can't just visit them whenever I want. I always have to take an extra day off, or I have to wait for a holiday that is close to a weekend. And sometimes things happen in Germany and I really, really want to go there quickly, and then it's just not possible. I think that's the biggest disadvantage for me. Everything else I can live with, but now that my parents are getting older, that is a huge concern for me. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll be uploading a few more Paris videos very soon. Please subscribe and see you in the next video. Bye!